Thank you. I didn't know until my state president came that I could speak in the name of the league, so I was on the program as just a private citizen. The league has endorsed this position. One of their principles is that they believe in and promote a government which is open, representative, accountable, and responsive. And to accomplish all of these things, it requires work on the part of every citizen. Thoughtful citizens have been concerned about low voter participation and citizen apathy. It's kind of an open secret that the number of Utah voters, particularly young people, has been going down steadily, and partly I think because we are a one-party state. But many experts have said that the way our state legislatures who have given the responsibility under the Constitution have chosen to draw the legislative boundaries at each level at the census every 10 years. The United States is the only country that allows legislators to choose their own districts. In the words of Kay Maxwell, a former president of the League of Women Voters of the United States, representative democracy depends on the voters freely choosing their representatives rather than politicians choosing their voters. A representative government demands fair processes that allow each voter's voice to be heard unencumbered by faulty mechanisms, unfair procedures, special interests, or government interference. Redistricting is an intensely political process. Members of legislative bodies have acted to perpetuate themselves in office by creating safe seats for themselves or to create more seats for their parties and retain power. But what is good for elected officials and political parties is not necessarily good for representative government or for citizens. To that end, the League espoused 4 basic redistricting principles for protecting the integrity of the electoral process. First, we support the bedrock constitutional guarantee of one person, one vote. Secondly, the redistricting process should promote full political participation by minority voters. Third, the redistricting process should be transparent and open to public participation. Finally, we oppose partisan gerrymandering because it subverts our democratic system. 1812 is the year they give for the inception of the word gerrymandering. The governor of Massachusetts drew the boundaries to favor his process, and we've had it ever since then. What makes it a little more onerous is with the advances in data management in the last 25 years, it is possible for people who draw maps to know or predict pretty accurately how people are going to vote and to use that when they draw the boundaries. I'm going to speak primarily to the last issue, opposing partisan gerrymandering. I need to tell you first that the Utah League of Women Voters studied reapportionment and redistricting in 1979. We have a position favoring an independent commission since 1980. I believe in 1980 the Utah legislature was mostly Democratic, so it doesn't matter which party's in power. We think that the best use of redistricting belongs to an independent commission. Gerrymandering has negative consequences for citizens. One party in any state leads to, number one, less accountability. Legislators can afford to be less responsive to their constituents when they are assured of re-election. They don't have to be civil to those constituents who espouse different views. An example of this kind of in our own legislature was the closing of the phones in 2007 when they were considering the voucher bill. It was impossible for you to phone and leave a message for your legislator because the party leaders decided that they didn't need your input. When one party is dominant, some issues such as ethics and conflict of interest can be pushed aside. Doesn't matter because they're going to be reelected anyway. New ideas from the minority don't need to be considered. In the election process, in a one-party state, candidates from the majority party do not have to partake of voter information sources, be it for the League of Women Voters, the newspapers, the Utah Foundation, or anyone else, because it doesn't matter. During the redistricting process, it can also be payback time for certain legislators, or the removal of a possibility of somebody in the other party or the own party that is perceived as a threat or an up-and-comer. I can almost bet that if things continue the way they are now, that one of those legislators who signed the ethics complaint is going to be redistricted with another, I am sure, because it's payback time. It's too bad. We can remember in 2001, there was a very fine woman legislator who was put into a district with another legislator because I think she was perceived as a threat, maybe even an uppity woman. And she fooled them all, and she ran for Senate and she got reelected. Secondly, most people have said our methods of redistricting have contributed to the rancor, particularly on the national level, because the majority of Congress members are from safe districts. Doesn't matter what they do, they're going to be reelected. Unfair representation of people, really it amounts to disenfranchisement of voters. In Massachusetts, where the Democrats are the bad guys, that 20% of the voters are Republicans, and they have no members of Congress reelected as Republican, and they haven't re-elected a Republican in 10 years. It doesn't matter what party it is when they're really dominant. And lastly, it's the voter apathy. We have a close primary in Utah. In one-party district, elections may not be contested, and a lot of us can't have any kind of input into that candidate when we may or may not. It leads to extremism on both sides. And also, if you're part of being a good citizen isn't just pulling the ballot box every 2 years, but it's being informed and talking to your legislator about issues. It's hard to get enthused when your legislator lives far away from you or you are part of a distinct minority. So the League of Women Voters has looked at the initiative, and they are in support, have endorsed the initiative, and I would urge you to think deeply about this process and support it as well.